first and foremost, thank you all for showing up this morning. I know that the morning session after the bar crawl is usually a tough one to get up for, so we appreciate you all being here. My name is Robert Few. I'm with a company called TCX. We're an executive management company that are sponsoring this track today. I'll tell you that this class was one of our highest rated last year, so we're excited to kind of get back into it today. Do I need to use the... We'll play a quick video. So last year we were the soap people, if everybody remembers. We had bourbon infused soap. This year, try to stick with the horse theme. In front of you is a roll of vet wrap. For the 2% of people that are horse people in this room, you know what this is. You know what it's used for. For everybody else, it's used to tape up horses' legs, give them support, make people stronger. So in understanding that not everybody here is from horse country, we found a bunch of other ways you could use this. One, ladies, blisters. If you looked at the show floor yesterday, there's probably 4 or 5 people who had their ankles wrapped with this because of blisters from walking. For the installers, wire organization in a pinch or a non-stick surface. If you're working with your tools, you can lay this down on top of the ladder that you shouldn't be standing on and your tools should not fall off. But at the end of the day, we're all about supporting our dealers. We'd love to talk to you about you more if you have questions and concerns. We love helping this organization. And there, we'll take you guys.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
Take a moment, please read the antitrust.
We'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming today. My name is Danny Goodpaster. I'm the Vice President of Sales at Bates Security. I've been in the industry about 10 years, all at Bates. Happy to be here with you today.
My name is Seth Sloan. I've been in the industry going on 20 years, and it's been with a couple of different operations, from anywhere from monitoring to installation to sales. I've done sales.
So our objectives here, you may have seen these in the agenda. So we want to cover our strategies for company-wide buy-in, communication between departments, desired outcomes for that. Concept of collaborative estimating and the benefits that we've seen and that you may see. Techniques for aligning customer expectations with our operational capabilities and the importance of trade. Hang on, Seth. We did this last year. Hey, guys, there's still muffins out there if you guys want to grab some. I think there was some yogurt as well.
Danny, hold on. Number one, this isn't a job that you're handing over to operations.
I'd be out of here already.
Number two, Danny, we're still seeing some of the same things over and over again.
Why don't you share with me then? I thought we had it fixed.
We're still seeing wrong parts. We're still seeing these labor overages. Really, an hour for 5,000-foot runs, really? The wasted truck rolls, heading out unnecessarily. We've still got issues we need to work through. Anybody else feel like this? Is operations in the room?
Well, I thought we'd kind of give a start from where we were maybe this time last year and where we started quite a few years ago in trying to work better together as sales and operations. And so to get an idea of what we've done recently, I wanted to give you an idea of kind of where we started off. This was maybe 6 or 8 years ago. We rolled out some standardization of our process. And it included quite a few things on all department sides. We're going to focus on sales and operations sides today. First thing we did is we standardized the quoting process. We required pre-approval for any quotes of a specific size and or type. So that was specifically anything over $5,000 at the time. Nowadays it seems like we don't have much under $5,000 as prices go up and things like that this many years later. Also fire jobs as well was one thing that we identified as, hey, we need to get a second set of eyes on this. We'd always had a fire engineer, an ISET certified engineer. We assigned them to that role. And we developed a sales engineer role as well. So we had 2 individuals kind of taking a second set of eyes on all of these jobs. Some of the things we did is the way we submitted jobs. It was just a cluster. And I'll admit that. I was part of that, right? So you'd get, a book of notes or you'd get one sentence, right? You'd get not the information you need, but all that we wanted to give you, right? So what we did was we set up some forms and standardized the way that notes would be submitted on jobs, the required information that you need to give operations, and that worked pretty well. We set up a site condition worksheet, standardized format of how we put in job notes. The job input was to be consistent, and consistency in our drawings and the way we deliver something to you. We probably had all our reps using different icons for a smoke detector, and that just doesn't work, right?
Those standardized notes were so standardized that it was like they were copied and pasted.
That would never happen.
We had a heavy standardization on the job execution also. We implemented, all of the process was documented not only in a booklet that each technician had, but it was also documented on cards that they would have for quick reference they carried with them. This was all at their disposal. They had it at all times. But we implemented things like pre-calls every single site. We're looking at reducing truck rolls, heading off the waste of time. I've been told that those truck rolls are very expensive. I think there may be another session on that. We implemented site walkthroughs with the customer where we would actually walk through with them, lay out exactly what their expectations were. Not that we had ever had issues with something changing between when it was sold and when it was being put in, but we just wanted to firm that up. Get a signature on the drawing. We know exactly where it's going. If anything comes back, we've got documentation of who we spoke to, that they've approved it. We're locked in. We implemented an end-of-day communication. Our installation manager at the time was quite literally pulling his hair out, trying to keep everything ready and implemented for the next day. He was having to call technicians far past when we would like to be calling our technicians. So we put in a mandatory end-of-day communication that would come in, which evolved in via technology as it went along. But that would tell us some of the key points. Are we done? Do we need more time? Is it going long? Here's a reiteration of any red flags we found on the site. It was coming in at the right time to get movement on it early and not bug our technicians after hours or make our installation manager twitch. And then we went over the processes of what are the red flags that we're looking for? What do we do about them? Who are we communicating them to? We structure that in such a way to empower the technicians. We addressed how change orders were handled, in that we moved those over to the project managers and clarified that process and who was responsible, when they were responsible, as opposed to bringing in sales. And then we implemented one of the more contentious aspects of our whole process change, the sales ops meeting. It was by design, organized and consistent. This is something that we had on a very regular basis at the same time, same bat channel. We reviewed and made sure there was a universal clarity of key performance indicators. Not only did we know what was going on, they knew what was going on, and we had that clarity between departments. We would discuss existing and future work to give us a bit of a heads up on what was coming in, and it was really an opportunity for us to share information, back orders, product compatibility issues, problems at sites. We were able to share that in what we'll call a safe environment. And we held it weekly. All of this was focused around empowering employees. We have our processes, we're empowered, we have everything set the way we are going to do it, and that gives us time to focus on what we need to do, not on the process. We've got that laid out.
You know, talking about all this is making me think about jelly donuts again. I think we're done. All that worked really well, and we really improved quite a bit, right? Did anybody have any of those? Were they good?
I will admit, yes, it did help immensely. But, Danny, things change. We might have gone through a few things between now and then.
Okay, I'll give you that. So at that time, we were one office. We had 3 commercial salespeople, about an hour from here in Lexington, Kentucky. And we've grown quite a bit since. At that time also, we had the fire engineer and sales engineer. Our fire engineer moved into a different role, and we tasked our sales engineer, who's also NICET, with fire approvals as well. We then began to grow quite a bit on the sales side and as a company. And so we went from 1 office to 5. Our customer base grew quite a bit. We went to now 17 salespeople from 3 and still had 1 person tasked with that. So it's safe to say, Seth, you saw that we were missing some things, right?
Hold on, we grew quite a bit. Now I see how we got an hour for a 1,000-foot wire run.
So there's our kind of our footprint today. And like I said, 2 states, multiple offices. All of this became a little bit more difficult to manage. The other aspect of it was, we had a person, in Kentucky looking at jobs for, say, Jacksonville, Florida. And so there was no local level involvement for the operations teams in those offices and the remote offices. And so we were seeing that there wasn't as much skin in the game. We were missing some things. And so we wanted to go about really reevaluating and taking a closer look at it.
Well, we obviously needed to reevaluate. We needed to take into account the major events, the pain points that we had encountered along the way. What had we learned from going through the pandemic? Anybody in operations, sales, anywhere remembers the Great Resignation, as I believe we're calling it now. So there was significant technical turnover. Any processes we had laid out had to be retaught to a new crew, and they had to be educated on the products, how to do it. Not to mention, we might have had a few new products put in there, maybe entire product line changes. A couple days to get that down, no problem there. And then, of course, like you said, we're gonna call it rapid growth. I'm gonna call it massive growth. But it affected us.
Yeah, I think all these changes we looked at as growing pains, which we looked at as positive, but it was clear we had sort of outgrown where we were, and we needed to change our process. So we needed to be repotted, if you will, right, Seth? We were outgrowing our environment. So we set about, at the risk of maybe replicating one of our most contentious sales ops meetings, we got into a room and we wanted to lay out all of our issues. And we examined the entire process of selling and installing a job and bringing it online. And we really wanted to look at, where were these issues that we could improve upon. So we got in a room, we really laid it all out there, and it quickly became evident that you can't fix it all at once. And so we wanted to start right there at the beginning, where we generate the jobs from sales, and start to improve that process. So that was our initial goal. We developed what we call our proven process. And I thought this was a great step for us in really kind of getting an idea. We've always done these things on the screen here, but with it being illustrated, we really kind of clarified it for everyone in the company. And everyone kind of knew where their spot was within that proven process. We start with the initial consultation on the sales side, and you see some color to it underneath. We'll go out, set about our consultative process, try to learn about the customer, then learn about us, and have enough information to go back and design something. Collaborative design to that point had been, and we had always told customers, and I think it's more true than ever now, Seth, we always told them we want to combine your best thinking with our best thinking. And what we really meant was, I want to combine Danny's best thinking with the customer's best thinking. Well, what we have truly now is our best thinking as a whole, as a collective. Bates Security's quote. And so we would bring it back, consult with our operations folks, and really bring back to the customer what our best design was that would work best based on their needs. From that point, we bring the exact solution to the customer, get their thoughts. Perhaps we jump back and forth between collaborative design a little bit, but we feel pretty confident we bring that out, that we've got, based on all of their input, based on our team's input, a design that's going to work for them that they can say yes to. From that, we move into implementation, where Seth's team takes over, and we have a planned and managed installation, and professional techs going out, getting the job done, taking care of that customer. Then we move into this customer experience, which is really kind of what sets, I think, us apart. We really have this, we key in on this in our presentations, and it's just everything the customer will experience over time. So from in-facility monitoring our central station, how that will go, to inspections, service on site, any sort of remote support they may need, programming changes, code changes, call list changes from our customer service center. These folks' needs are they're gonna grow and change. So they may move, they may grow, they may need add-ons, might have to be transferred when they move out and they get a new system somewhere else. So all of those things take into account, and of course ongoing training support. So all of this was too much to tackle all at once, but this did really give clarity for our company and just where in my role do I fit within this proven process and what the customer is going to experience from Bates Security. So we want to start at the beginning and go back to those initial steps, from initial consultation to exact solution, and how can we improve that portion of our process to make it that much more possible that we'll have a successful implementation. So that was our initial goal.
I do want to say, we had seen this beforehand, but once it was released to everybody, seeing the different teams pointing at it going, we're here, it really, really brought everything together.
So the revamp of the collaborative quoting process was really the next step there to make sure we're working really well together. We modified slightly what we were doing. One of the first things we thought of was we have this one person tasked with all these jobs, all these quotes coming in. And you could see the wheels spinning with operations pretty quickly. We said, okay, here's what we're going to do. And the local level manager is going to approve this. And they're thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many quotes that are coming in. And this is not just what's sold, it's everything we're quoting. And I started thinking, golly, Sean's been doing this, and he's been overtasked, right? So our guidelines that we set forth were jobs over 10,000, So anything that's a large job, any fire job, we still want to have a second set of eyes on. Takeover of existing sites, and that includes, our upgrades of our legacy equipment. I think we do things a lot better now than we did 30 years ago, and we run into some of those still where we could have maybe done a better job at that time, and that could be that same situation of that takeover that ends up going long because of the way the previous company installed it. So any takeover or upgrade, bid work. So it just doesn't make sense to have one sales rep, I think, look at just a stack of information and try to catch it all. Your eyes go crossed when you're doing that, and it's really tough to catch everything. So we wanted to get a second set of eyes on that. One of the things that we built in was anyone that wants just to raise their hand and just, hey, look, I need a second. Seth, can you look at this with me? And so we were kind of all in our, had our heads down, working away at our jobs, and it was very difficult to ping the installation manager or project manager, say, hey, I really need you to look at this too with me because I'm not sure about it, right? So a voluntary pre-approval that does get used. And then new reps, anybody that's maybe, anywhere from like 3 to 6 weeks, just a new rep, that once they're past that time, they're probably pretty good, I think.
You said 3 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, like 3 to 6, like a month and a half, right?
Yeah, we're going to go with that.
So yeah, just anybody, we need to agree upon, that rep's experience level, where they're at. Everybody comes along in different time frames. This could be somebody that's a year and a half in. It could be somebody that's, just got hired. So we want to make sure that they're comfortable. So maybe it's Danny's quotes. He's good on everything, man, but he doesn't know anything about access control. So we need to still look at those, right? So new reps would include in that. So our process there, and we went about defining this and have it in writing for our sales team, and the ops team can see it. We go about the initial discovery, that fact-finding phase. We develop a drawing. We have standards published on how we would submit that drawing, what sort of pictures you need to take. The pictures were kind of a light bulb that went off, and we thought, hey, Seth, we just need you guys to come with us and look at everything with us, right? And
I've totally got time for that, Danny.
do you? So you take enough pictures, you get, something like this convention center. Well, if I've got a picture of the main areas, the doors, maybe I got access control on the door you entered today. I've got a nice overview picture of the hallway. I can see the ceiling height. I know what type. I know the construction. And so you can get a lot from that, and we can kind of have a virtual visit if we take some good pictures. We have a form that we fill out. We post in a shared Teams channel. And that's where Seth's team gets involved and begins to review. Some of the tools that we put in place here on this, got to share quite a bit with everybody. So so ops did not have any access to our quoting software, so we opened that up to them.
I did not know how much was involved in the quoting side of it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of appreciation for what, it's not just all, 2-hour lunches and golf scrambles. We're actually doing stuff too. So we opened up the quoting software to them so they could see the quotes. Our pre-approval form was a way to make sure that we standardized the information that went to them. So when they receive the form, you've got the information in the same place all the time. So if I need a lift, if Seth sees a picture and says, does he have a lift on this? He knows where that section of the form is. It's just a checkbox, yes or no. Need a lift, don't. Our shared communication channels, we use Teams for that. So once that form hits the channel, they're able to go back and forth. We've seen quite a bit of back and forth in there. It's really neat to see the conversations that get carried through there. We share our work folders. So we're in 365, so that's SharePoint for us. We just have all of our work folders that they had been using already, the salespeople, where they're used to putting their stuff in, and it's organized by year and then by customer. Seth and team are able to go in and take a look at that. Publish those drawing standards, published our labor guideline standards. And I think that was a kind of a game changer for us too, is getting a feel for, well, this is what we're thinking. And we just took what we had now. We didn't go about, okay, we need to evaluate all of these labor guidelines that y'all been using. We just said, what is it now? And then we can improve upon it later, should we need to. So I think there's some more evaluation to go with that. We have identified some things that we do need to add to it.
Absolutely.
Right? And of course, the picture and drawing standards as well. So example of the pre-approval form, I think, is next there. I know you can't see a lot of it, but the point I wanted to show you was what we want to do is reduce typing. This is a web form. And so it's mostly check mark boxes. We mentioned the site condition worksheet I think Cindy and I showed last year. It's very similar. So we want, where possible, minimal typing, right? And so check mark boxes for job type. You know, you do have to type a couple things. It's a drop-down box for your name. So if it's me, click that box, I hit D, I'm the only D, I select it, right? So it's designed to be very quick and easy and to deliver them the information they need and only the information they need. So we started it and we had a form. And then I think overnight, the form ballooned to like this massive thing. I'm like, hold on, we need every job and you guys aren't gonna read it. And so we really thought about what is really necessary in order to pre-approve. Not to install a job, because that's later, just to make sure we've got a quote that's good that can go out. And so that's where we came up with the pre-approval form. And it works really well. We even built in, if you have a job that needs to be rushed, that has a tighter timeline. We have a section for that, and actually are making some improvements based on our scheduling team's input right now as to what else needs to be included in that so they can get that information, because they're begging for, hey, you guys are just typing in this channel everything under the sun, trying to basically justify why your job needs to be pushed forward. And all I need to know is these 5 things, right? And so we built that in to kind of reduce that and make sure they get the information that they want.
Did I hear you right? Did you say rush? You're going to need to post that
Yeah, I said
on the
it.
Rush channel.
I said it. So then it gets to Seth, and take it away, Seth.
Once again, here we are. It's in the ops hands. The operations side of the pre-approval process all comes back to, can we bring the job in as successfully as expected and meet the customer expectations? This whole process, once it hits operations, is teams driven, and it is conversation initiated by that pre-approval form. We are going to take it in. We are going to review that pre-approval form, verifying any information that we see, any notation, trying to get what is the expectation of the customer out of this. We're going to pay particularly close attention to anything time-related. And then we're going to move on from the form over to take a look at the sales work folders. We're going to be reviewing the pictures. We're going to be reviewing the drawings, any spec sheets. Often if there is equipment that we're less familiar with, they will have already done some amount of research and we'll include that. The great thing about this team that we've created within Teams is it's going to keep an isolated conversation that will remain, that we can go back and review. As you'll see later, this review is a big part of this. So we've got all of the thought process as we're going through this documented. From the time this is a twinkle until the time that it's turned into reality. We're going to be reviewing heavily the materials. And the major things that we're looking at, will it work? Do we have compatibility concerns put to bed? Has anybody thought about power? I mean, that job that came in with 6 keypads, 32 motions, and no power supply, guys, we had to talk. Is the connectivity taken care of? Are the logistics in place? Are we going to be able to work with this site? So we're going back to our drawings, we're going back to our pictures, we're reviewing, will this work? We're also going to investigate, are there effective alternatives? Are there opportunities for better efficiencies with different parts. Can we do more with less? Do we have one-off parts that we could replace with one of our standardized parts? One example of this, I was working with a salesperson, and she had done a takeover. She was going to bring in a couple of wireless, and I said, hey, we're going to need a power supply. Are you going to leave that old panel in there to power all this stuff? Well, no. So we backtrack. Well, now we don't need this takeover. Now we don't need this. So at that time, we sold a whole lot more residual on it. But we ended up coming in less expensive on the same platform. Everything's the same. All the maintenance will remain the same. It was just a better option. So not only through the conversation did we fix this one, but now we've developed a plan going down the road. This doesn't continue to happen. We've got it all documented. There is power in the conversation and being able to have that early on.
How I add to that, that particular rep sounds like as an inside sales rep.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things we had done, I guess 3 or 4 years ago, is develop this inside sales team. And some of the things they can now do because of pre-approval have they're going to take off. It's going to be like a lightning bolt, because this particular person on a job that she had in Florida, she's in Kentucky. She was selling an access control door. It's one of our first access control doors that inside sales sold. And she just very nicely asked the customer, would you take these pictures of the door? And he did. And all of a sudden, we've got all the information, plus, some other things, and all the information in order to quote effectively. She knew where the wire path was. We knew what the difficulties might be. We consulted with the operations manager in that area. She sold a job that everyone was in agreement on without ever leaving her desk in Kentucky, which I just thought was, I'm still tickled by it. And so these things that they can do now, because they have the technical expertise, and because we put a process in place that makes them think about some of these things. Because yes, she probably could have sold the door remotely, but would she have had it right? Unlikely if she didn't follow this process. And so it's pretty cool to see what they can do now and how powerful they can be because of the process we put in place.
It's been very, very powerful. Still in the category of materials, we are also going to look at miscellaneous costs associated with things like conduit lifts, travel consumables, things of that nature. Are those accounted for? Do we have the materials that we need? Are they sold? And then we're going to talk about labor. Boy, we talk a lot about labor. We're gonna review when we're thinking about labor. Number one, customer expectations. Are we going to meet those deadlines? The rush, the special notes. But we're really going to incorporate our labor guidelines, these expectations that we've set that have that little caveat at the end that says, depending on site difficulty. So we may take an hour to do this or 2 hours to do that, but we always have to bring into account site difficulties. What is the reality versus our guidelines? We're going to bring in our historic results. What are like sites that we've worked on? Sometimes these are existing customers, and while it might look good on paper, when we look at it and we say that 100-year-old church, guys, last time we had a heck of a time. We have got to incorporate that back into it to get the labor correct on it. Are there red flags that we're seeing? Are we running outdoor conduit under buildings around the corner? That's gonna come in a little differently than some of our standard options.
Hey, that was a big change too with the local level involvement. Is the church in Eastern Kentucky? Chris knows it. He's been there. He's installed systems at it. Sean here in Lexington had not. And so just that, and these texts, remember, you guys have texts that remember everything from like 20 years ago. It's amazing. I don't know how you guys have these memories, but they know, hey, remember this time I ran into this issue in that area, and so we need to think about that, right? And so it's really neat to kind of have that local level involvement and help us become a little more successful and think about these things we might not have thought about.
So one great thing about this process, we've reviewed labor materials, we've checked out the notes, we've gotten involved if we need to. One of the salesperson may say, hey, look, I've walked this is my best thought process on it, but let's do a walkthrough together. Whatever we've done at this point, this is where the conversation is happening. This is where operations is really establishing that buy-in. It's not just sales, it's ours. I'll give you yet another example. I was working with one of our commercial salespeople, and I get this easy breezy wedding venue that comes in where there's going to be a fire system, and I'm looking through it and I'm going, hey, it's a barn, it's exposed. We've got aesthetics to worry about here. There is just not enough labor sold. I never said that before. There's just not enough labor sold. Where's the conduit? This is exposed. I can't just have wires hanging down the wall. Come on, guys. And here comes Randy. Yeah, we've got all that worked out. We've got somebody coming in. They're going to get the conduit, get it all painted up. So, and I'm like, well, there goes all my labor concerns. I have no fight left in me on this. It's all thought out. But what we really have is we've got operations at this point raring to go on this. We're going, oh, okay, when are we getting started? We've got this buy-in and this established trust because of what we're going through together to get to where we're going. Speaking of fire, we're going to bring in our internal experts, occasionally an external expert. We're going to bring in our Sean for all things fire. He is our NICET, NICET level 3, and he's going to verify that it's going to work for code. He is going to verify that any issues we may have on the fire are taken care of as far as egress, fire code, electrical code. He's on it. We're going to bring in our ATV person, all things video, Mr. Adam Ballard. We will bring him in on anything video. Not only is he a networking guru that's going to assist in any point-to-point concerns, he has often been a liaison with IT. He is going to verify analytics and make sure that we are going to pick up what we need and not send the police out more than we need to. And he is also going to help us integrate the video into the Berg side or anything else that we're bringing it in on. And then, of course, ultimately, the big question is it approved or is it rejected? We cannot simply lightly reject. If we're going to be rejecting, we need to know why. Why are we rejecting it, and are we communicating that information? Do we have missing information? Has the process not been followed? Have the guidelines not been followed? Do we have a labor disagreement? I promise you it's incredibly rare. But
There's plenty of labor on the job, okay? You don't, just get it done faster.
Not every job can beat 8 hours, Danny.
One day, it's all you need.
One day with our, let me guess, with our best tech.
Send the best one, yeah.
Okay. Next, you're gonna tell me something like, well, I could do it in 8 hours.
I don't know. Sometimes I think I could.
So if we're pushing back, if we're rejecting, it is our responsibility to let them know why. That is our opportunity to help them. It is our opportunity to make the process better. It's our opportunity to provide suggestions, better options depending on site conditions, better ways that we can approach. And ultimately, what we're wanting out of this is an operational, we've got this. That's where we're wanting to go on this. So when that job comes in, we've got an ops manager, a project manager, and techs that are going, all right, let's do this. We know what's going on. let's burn this down. We got it. Another aspect of this is how are we doing? We go through a fairly extensive project review where we're looking at active projects. This is on a bi-weekly basis. We're looking at active projects within 80 labor units sold. So these are things that are not quite done. We're going ahead and taking a look at them for anything that we might extrapolate from that. And then, of course, we're looking at completed projects over in labor or materials by 10%. And typically we'll look at them if they're significantly below also. What we want to get from that is, at the peak, what went great and what could go better, and what can we learn from that? Are we able to extrapolate new efficiencies and best practices from that, incorporate them back into our process that at this point is ever evolving? Were change orders identified and pursued? Again, back to process. Are we learning from our red flags? Are there things that we can put back into our pre-approval process to eliminate this before it ever comes back? What can we learn to make our process better? Was labor trim and efficient? Unfortunately, this one tends to fall heavily on operations. This is technician and operational accountability. Again, takeaways and training opportunities. If we're not learning from it, we're really not getting what we paid for here. And then all the time measuring the effectiveness of pre-approval. Did it go through pre-approval? What we're looking at, did it actually go through pre-approval? The big question, should it have gone through pre-approval? Did we miss an opportunity by not including that in our pre-approval process? And if it did go through pre-approval, was it effective? Are we communicating to sales when we find an opportunity? Are we helping train them to be more effective in what we're finding after the fact? So an example, we found a particular type, I won't brand the name here, a particular type of intercom system, and ultimately we put it in very slowly. It was not as successful as it could have been, which led to the conversation of, we used to sell this once every other month, maybe. Well, now we're selling 2 or 3 a month, and we really didn't have the detailed training that we could have. So there, we've recognized the training opportunities. We're able to pivot and implement. We are able to communicate with them what we know, how we can do it better. We can give them better estimates on what it'll take to actually make it happen. Another issue that we've run into from, not issue, but actually an aha moment that we've run into from these reviews. We're pretty stringent on our labor guidelines in regards to the materials being used. But internally, when we take over certain systems, we have an exhaustive testing process. And where it might take us, we're gonna say, I'll throw a bone here, it might take us an hour to put that cell unit in. What we really weren't accounting for in that process was the exhaustive testing. Does it take long to test? No, not really. But sometimes it takes a really long time to find those hidden devices that somebody else has put in. And we were able to identify and address those labor deficiencies, all because of the way that we were reviewing. So let's talk about the results that we've seen so far. We've had an incredible increase in volume and quality of communication, not just in pre-approval, but it extends far beyond that. I like to joke that we're actually starting to ruin the carpet in our office between operations and sales now, because we're going back and forth so much, having these conversations about this work.
Yeah, I think some time ago, we redid the second floor as where our operations leadership was and made our warehouse bigger, right? And our office, it's 3 stories and, it's a hallway down the middle and a side on either side. And so install team comes down, install manager, ops manager, project managers all come down to the first floor. And I don't know, maybe a week, and both of those doors to the hallway are shut. And it's like, we are just, no, and now they're wide open, we're talking almost immediately because of the involvement in the jobs on both sides. Like Seth said, we're gonna need new carpet probably because it's, back and forth all day, scheduling times to talk to each other, see them in the training room looking over drawings together. And instead of the salesperson closing their eyes and clicking submit on the job, hoping, please don't, just, maybe give me a week or two before you come and beat me up about this. I think they're submitting with confidence. And on my end, approving a job, I can recall one pretty large one for a bourbon distillery. And the previous job, the very first job we did for them was a few years ago, and man, it just went awful. It really went poorly. And we had to sit in a room together and kind of answer for our sins on that one between operations and sales. And so I saw the name in the queue to be approved, and my first thought when I saw the name was, this thing went awful last time. I opened it up, and I remembered, well, this has already been discussed. Seth, our install manager, our project, they've looked at this. We've been on site, and I kind of got my kind of a second wind, and I was just super happy to approve the job. That what paperwork's correct, all that, and so got the job approved. So it was a big difference in mindset between the 2 departments. I recall one, and I don't think it was that job, Seth, but like you had been involved. I think Ted had been involved, and you guys were. It was a pretty good sized one, and I'm pretty sure you and I ran across. I'm like, Randy sold that, and we high fived each other. And I don't remember the last time we've high fived between sales and installation. A lot of times it's, hey, we sold this big one. Oh man, really? And so that was a cool moment to be on the same page and just, the same team rooting for each other. We want to make the sales, we want to install it correctly, all these things. And so we've got that visibility early on in the process is a big part of that. Not getting surprised with, I can't imagine the feeling of getting a, 200 labor unit job that you never knew about until the time it hit your job queue. What were we doing, right? That had to be tough. And then, ops gets it. There's no surprises. We've agreed already. We can do it, and we've got that buy-in from both sides.
Ultimately, our parts are more accurate. Our labor is more accurate. We've got less compatibility issues. It's an operational approved program, so there's less questions. We hit the ground running, and it's consistent. It's just consistent.
Well, we mentioned, a lot of trust between the departments, thinking together, we're relying on each other quite a bit more, and so that just develops that goodwill. And initially, we started examining the entire process, and we said as a leadership team, hey, look, here's what we're going to do. We're gonna really revamp pre-approval. I don't know that I was not completely happy with it, right? I was like, no, we need to fix how we're installing stuff. We're taking too long to install these things. We haven't changed anything, and I think I was a little negative.
I don't know, man. I don't think the sales guys are gonna like this.
As soon as you see the results of it and you see what's happening, it just makes sense. Start from the beginning and work your way from there. And so I think we have improved some things. We got a lot of more improvements to make. One of my big concerns was, ops is just going to want more hours on every job. You guys are just going to ask, just double the labor, and we're never going to sell anything. That's it. Everybody go look for jobs because we'll never sell anything again. And that's not been the case. I've actually seen, I think there was a couple, and that either you or Ted once said, hey, I think there's too much there. Let's look at this. So that was kind of interesting to see.
Never thought it would happen.
And of course, there's still some of that we have to have those conversations. We have to kind of have some back and forth. And a lot of times it's things that we didn't provide all the information for, right? So you're concerned about the conduit on the fire job, right?
Mm-hmm.
What if that was just a note on that form, right? And we said, hey, look, conduit's covered, right? Then you would have known that. There's been a couple times on some pretty complex ones that you guys have said, hey, will you come look at this with me and help me decipher this drawing that our reps made? And I'm used to seeing, so we just look through it together. And so a lot of that is getting worked out. And one of the big concerns I also had was, this is going to take us that much longer to get quotes out. And time kills deals, right? And we have a couple of reps in our Florida markets that are from larger companies, and that was one of their bits of feedback when they came on was, I've got 6 levels of approval before I can ever get a quote to a customer, and by the time I get it there, they've already bought it from someone else. So that was a concern I had, and I think we've done a good job of setting a timeline, sticking to it. I'm not afraid to come and ask you guys if we think we need something quicker, if it's gone too far. Timeline we set was 48 hours from the time it gets submitted, and I think we're doing a pretty good job of sticking to that. So that's pretty cool.
Well, it's that back and forth accountability on it. It's being honest with one another is what allows us to have this roadmap to a better process that we're constantly fine tuning. We're constantly making updates to that is communicated out to everybody. We have had updates to our rush procedure. We have had updates to some of our labor guidelines, and have the expectation of more updates. We are constantly trying to make this a better process and make it fit for more and more situations.
Kind of neat how all these things touch so much, right? When you think about, pre-approval and how does that relate to rush? Let's get it all out there. Let's make sure everybody's aware of what's going on if we're going to have to rush that timeline on it,
So, final results. We've got additional empowerment here. We've got it taken care of. It allows us to focus more on the implementation and heading off issues that could not have been found beforehand, because we've gotten all of this taken care of up front. So we're able to get out and put this stuff in, get it working, meet our customer expectations. And ultimately, we're seeing results in the form of profitability. We're seeing our labor overages drop. We're seeing happy customers that are getting exactly what they want. It is working. But, as with anything, there are things that we need to do. So we look to the future. We're looking at further clarity between sales and operations to promote the universal understanding of the process. Additional detail and scope of our labor guidelines. Taking those general guidelines that we have and breaking them down for specific sites and circumstances, takeovers existing, things of that nature. Standardization of the product lines beyond some of the general that we have, bringing our product lines more into a specific focus so that we're inputting less obscure parts.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job of that too. Some of this has developed into the need for that standardization. So we had one of our operations managers in Eastern Kentucky actually develop a really nice sort of spreadsheet, cheat sheet for our reps and approvers for standard use parts for Berg, access, video, and it just did an awesome job on it. And so the more we can use things that are on that list that we're used to using, He also had the power thing figured out on that. So you mentioned power earlier.
The tech geek
And it's
in
really
me.
cool.
Oh.
I used it like the next day. So it was like, if you have this panel, this keypad, and this many parts, they draw this much power, just quick calculation. I'm like, crap, I guess I need a power supply. I never thought of that, you know. You guys have them sitting around though, so you can just add them to the job, right?
We've got one of those in refurb, right?
Yeah, refurb's got everything. So we're working on that too. So we have so many legacy parts out there that sales has to really make a push to continuously talk about our new offerings, bring those to our customers, and continue to attempt to upgrade those. That helps with service later on too. So it's not just touching install, it's touching the entire company. It helps with our customer service center with programming if they are in the same platform to do these programming changes. We're managing health of video, so our video folks, if they're in one area to do that, it makes their jobs easier. So that standardization is an ongoing thing, and we got to keep working on that, make sure we're kind of leading the customer towards the right path there. All for their benefit so they can get the best service possible from us.
And then, of course, we will renew our focus onto our proven process and get into the implementation stage. What can we do to increase efficiencies, improve documentation of what we're doing, the processes, the best practices, and then a specific, consistent training of the Bates way throughout technical operations. With that said, can we open the floor to questions?
We use WeSuite for our quoting software. Yeah, we've got a built-in approval, and you can set parameters for the approval, and it works pretty well. We've got multiple people. So you've got, from each office, we've got the right folks assigned, including backup for the specific sales rep. So it's working pretty well.
What are the roles that are involved in the approval process?
How do you mean?
So like when you say operations approves it, who in operations is approving?
So it's broken down by branch with coverage from alternate branches in the need be, but the operations manager and install supervisors are able to approve the jobs.
And the biggest thing was to get that involvement from the people that are tasked with implementing the job. So it's really is the folks that manage the technicians on site. So whether that's project management, install manager, operation manager, whatever you want to call it, whatever you call it in your company, it's that person that's tasked with bringing the job in on time, on budget, is really the primary person to pre-approve. And then we've got set up a backup to those folks so that if they're out on vacation, you've got somebody that can approve it during that time.
When we click that approve button, we're saying we can actually do this. Yes, sir.
In your collaborative environment, I want to make sure I understood this. Did you say your goal is to return a proposal within 48 hours?
No, I'm sorry. So 48 hours to pre-approve. So once we hit the button submit to the operations team, we're expecting turnaround within 48 hours for that. Our general timeline, we want to set up, the customer expectation on site in that initial consultation. A week or so is probably what we start with. If they say, I got to have it back quicker than that, then we try to get it done faster. It depends on the solution, depends on, the customer, how much, research we have to do. But generally speaking, probably, about a week is your time frame to get a proposal back from us.
Can I assume that fire would probably extend that?
I would say it's about the same. Actually, the fire person pre-approving fire, depending on the size of the system. Say it's sprinkler supervision, he turns it around really quickly. You got a large fire design, we may have some more involvement in that. Yeah, but our biggest thing would be to set up that expectation on site with the customer. Here's our next step. Here's how long we think this will take us. Does that work for you? and get that agreement from them and go ahead and set that time frame. But yes, a large fire design would take longer, yes, sir. Yeah.
Typically, our fire expert is involved in on that early with the initial designing also.
And to your point a minute ago, it is still, so we have our fire engineer, but the install manager is still tasked with bringing the job in on time. So yes, the fire engineer is involved, but the pre-approver is still the install manager, and he's going to ask for expert guidance from the fire engineer on how to design it. He's already been involved in the design as well on that. In the back.
You
Oh,
mentioned
over here.
quick
Sorry.
reference cards.
Yes.
What is the information that you have on those?
It's going to go back to our processes, how we do the pre-calls, how we do the walkthroughs. We also include some other information, things like ladder safety, tech support phone numbers, things of that nature. It really is a go-to reference source.
Next one question. What was the feedback from your sales team and your ops team, or your technicians when all these things were rolled out? Were they happy with the changes? Did you have, I mean, I know that's a loaded question. I can see both of you smiling.
Sales hated it. But I think they understood where we were going, right? So, again, we all sat in a room and we had some key salespeople in that room and laid out, the issues we had. It was like a Festivus. Got a lot of issues with you people, airing of grievances. So all of those things, and that was one of my concerns, was all the things that sales said about we're inefficient, we're this, we're that, we've got a green workforce. Are we ignoring that, right? I didn't want them to feel that way. And so we did cover that and said, this is where we have to start, right? And I think they got it. And Seth, you can speak to the ops side.
Frankly, the techs didn't care. Everyone else in operations going, I don't have time for this. I mean, we've got all this, we've got green techs, we're training, we're trying to keep these jobs running smoothly. We don't have time for this, but the reality of it is we don't have time not to do it. That's the reality of it. And the time invested is well worth the return.
Some time invested, analyzing time to see if we can run this whole program, and just based on the volume of jobs that meet the criteria for what requires approval, like if you figure like, all right, if we scale another 50 plus jobs that require approval, want them to have to hire another approver, like I guess like you can take it to that level, really understand like how much you're spending on this approval process.
Not necessarily how much we're spending on it, but we did run the numbers on capacity. What amount of jobs coming in do we feel is something that we can handle? We scaled it to that initially, but there has been significant talk about expanding that range that we're going to be approving. We've talked about other dollar figures, we've talked about other specific situations to bring into the pre-approval process. I would hesitate to say, and I don't know that I'll admit to it after this, but I do not believe that we have met our capacity yet. In our branch, we actually have 3 people pre-approving with 2 experts that come in as needed. And we simply have not gotten to our capacity on pre-approval.
For a company that maybe doesn't do any approval processes, and you do have another benchmark shared, like, right, you're gonna approve 100 jobs a month, that's gonna take someone, you need to dedicate someone 50% of their time, full-time resource.
I would say what one of the things that maybe put them at ease early on was, I had the experience of the approval on the back end, right? Once it's sold. And so I could speak to, this is about how many jobs we've got. We have info from our CRM that tells us how many quotes are actually going out. So you can kind of get a feel for that to give them an idea of what they're doing. But it's kind of getting on your own cadence. And sales was already doing this. we actually probably reduced the amount of jobs that sales puts through on pre-approval to some extent. Not much, but a little bit, because we raised that dollar limit, right? So they were already doing it, and we find sales is often, it's after 5, it's, on a Saturday or Sunday when they have time, whatever, is when they're doing that. And I just encourage Seth and his team to think about, whatever your cadence is. So if it's, you get there I get to the office about 7:30, I check the queue, and I see if, there's any jobs in there. And if I think I can get 1 or 2 done, I go ahead and I do it. Usually after lunch, I look again, and at the end of the day, or once I get home and, get the kids to bed, whatever that is. So, it's kind of your own cadence, and I think they've done a good job of kind of keeping an eye on it, but I don't know exactly how much time you guys are spending and what you would say.
It's like you're getting the skill for on the phone, kind of put your together, or it's kind of the same points where they're just sitting in this forum and you're kind of working on it.
So ideally, it could be just that, right? So prior to that, I think maybe a week before we rolled out this new process was, we were trying to get the project manager's input on a job. We had a drawing, and we wanted to get some idea on labor, and it was trying to hook up and make this thing work with time frames and schedules. And now what you can do is they have access to that drawing in the shared folders, right? Fill out the form that we created, put the information in there. You do that at 10 o'clock at night if you want to, right? Or whenever your time is as the sales rep to get that done. And then the project manager or pre-approver, looks at it on their time. And so instead of trying to align our schedules, we actually have a mechanism to be able to do it theoretically quicker, because we don't have to be in the same room together. It doesn't always work that way, but a lot of times it does. And you can ask a quick question, and then they get back, when they have time to do it. So
Thank goodness it's team-based. I have yet to have a job that I did not have some type of question. 80% of them are just, I want to know about this. Occasionally it is, hey, we've got to come to an agreement here before we can move forward. But there's always some type of question that comes up. I would say a couple of calls here and there. It's not much, and there is a certain amount of blind faith that was associated with the beginning of this, with the understanding of, yes, it's going to take more time, but look at how much we can save on site in front of the customer by having our ducks in a row. We get that back. I would rather have it up front and have our appearance to the customer and the project run smooth.
they're also reviewing that job when it hits their queue, so it won't be as many, but it does save some time once they get it, because they're already aware of it and they know that they approved it already. So.
Yeah, so if I understood correct, as a sales guy, I could sell a proposal, and even with the approval process, I could still reject it after I've sold it. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
So,
Okay, so what happens then? I'm sure Ops is thinking, sweet, we got the bullet, but Danny, for the sales side, what do you coach them through, or what do you have them do?
so really, there's some training moments there, right? So ideally, I gotta be careful because we have some operations people in the room here with dates. You want to take it through pre-approval. So if you have sold something that meets those criteria already, you've got an agreement or verbal from the customer, you've done it wrong if you haven't shown it to ops yet, right? Because they could have something that affects it. So say I had a job that met our GP standards, it's a good sale, you give me a verbal, yes, okay. Now, I got to put through pre-approval, and Seth says, hey, look, you're missing this, that, and the other, and it drops at 5%. You got an option there, you're probably going to lose commission, or you're going to have to go sell more, right? And so you don't like that feeling of having sold something and having to go back and ask for more money. So you're going to get trained pretty quickly on that aspect of it. You might roll the dice once or twice early on, but overall you're going to do that. And then, things that don't meet the criteria that ops gets, they still have to review once it hits their queue. If they think that, look, we can't do it the way you sold it, then we need to discuss that pretty in depth, because that is a situation where either you didn't follow the labor guidelines. Say it's a $4,000 job, right? So did you not follow the labor guidelines? What is the concern? And if there's something amiss there, actually I had one the other day that I talked to the rep afterwards. He says, well, I had that amount of labor on it, and then they had an objection on the price, so I need to lower the price. I said, well, you can't just lower the labor. You took 4 hours of labor off. I don't know, how do you want to deal with this, and I can't go back. They said they can't buy it at that price. All right, well, the only option then, you're going to lose commission, and you're going to learn the hard way on that. So it's to their benefit to follow the process, follow the labor guidelines, think about these things. It was travel he really didn't think about on that one. So, right, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, right? So I think all that's kind of building in training for them, and hopefully, we improve upon that over time as well. So.
We're really not trying to mess up your jobs. I promise you. What we really want is to get them put in to where they match what you sold. We want that to happen.
We do have it baked in where if it meets the criteria, you can't send the documents to the customer until it's pre-approved. So there's some of that there. But it's look, you got to follow the process, right? If you're not doing it, you're running the risk of something bad happening. So
in a situation like that, is there a dollar amount or a labor amount under which you're like, close enough, don't worry about it? And if so, how do you go back and teach that rep that, hey, look, you missed this, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it, we're not changing anything, we're just gonna run with it, but next time.
I think it's case by case, but there does need to be some pain associated with not following the process. If you willingly skirted around this, it's we got a room full of ops people, right? They're just thinking the worst of sales here. If you skirted around the process for whatever reason, there should be some pain associated with you getting it wrong, and that's fair. We've not had one person say, "Oh, well, yeah, I did that, but I shouldn't. This shouldn't happen to me." They know what they did, right? And so I think it's a training as you go. It's tuition they pay, but it's kind of case by case on something really small, But that 10% overage that they're reviewing, that is on any job over 10%. So I had a question the other day about a job that was over by 45 minutes. I'm like, why am I asking me about 45 minutes, And it's just because for now, it's every job over 10%. They're looking at it closely. So we want to make sure
1,000 small ones.
Right, yeah. So yeah, it's case by case on that. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So if you have one division that installs security and fire systems, I'm sure there are times when your fire alarm expert is overtasked with the full officer CADs and things like that. What do you do in those scenarios? Do you use another contractor, or do you pull somebody else in, another fire alarm expert?
We have not met his full capacity yet.
Okay.
No, he's simply put, with the timelines we have established, he is able to work in anything that we've thrown at him. We also have several other folks that do have the necessary state certifications and whatnot that are able to review some of the submittals that have already been put through. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
We always push for that.
we have a kind of an emergency break glass on our previous fire engineer. We could potentially, he's in a different role, doesn't want to do it, but we could, if we had an emergency, we could really do that. And we run into that where, you've got a fire job and our approvers on vacation. You don't have that same built-in backup. Ideally, we'd be able to get his eyes on it, but in the event that we can't, and you're in a time crunch to get the quote out, we do have some backup to that. But if he's in, he's pretty on the ball with it.
One more question about what you mentioned, inside salesperson. Your inside salesperson, are they primarily handling current established accounts, or are they generating new business as well?
So, yes. So a little bit of both. So moves, transfers, add-ons, small things, like they sell a lot of cellular communicators and across all offices. They're saving customers. And then outside of specific geographical areas that would be, further travel for a rep, you start the process with inside sales. We have one office that we currently do not have a salesperson. They're selling everything there. So it's just kind of as needed there. And so we're opening them up over the last few months to more commercial, more larger commercial type applications. You still get to where you do need some boots on the ground occasionally. We actually have a process built in to where we can request, a technical person on site if it's like that market that we don't have the salesperson in currently. So it's working well for now. See, I think they're doing a great job. They're eager, and there are 3 of those folks, 3 inside salespeople in that department.
I would mention bolstered by ops. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they lean heavily on that. They're the ones, they raise their hands a lot, right? And so same thing, like we mentioned new reps, so they're dealing with new applications. They're all, a video job, it's a commercial video job, they're bringing it, even if it's under 10,000. Access control, same for like a residential rep that finds themselves in a scenario where they've dug up something that they want to try to hold on to. We're gonna have them put things through pre-approval as well, regardless of size.
Did you have turnover when you were implementing the process? I assume it kind of weeded out some of the people that really weren't committed to the company. And if you did, how did you get buy-in from the rest of the team?
So right around the time we implemented, we had a little bit of turnover, but I think it was unrelated to, these were 2 folks. I'm speaking from the sales side. I assume that's where your question lied.
Kind of both, like, it's your statement previously of they're like, I don't have enough time for this, there are too many additional steps that you're giving me. And kind of be like, I don't want to deal with that anymore, go somewhere else that may not require as much of me.
So on our side, it was really two folks that were underperforming. They were on their way out already. The rest of them had a couple scenarios of skirting the process and having to learn from that. Overall, they've come along with it. Seth, on your side?
I mean, no, we're operations. We might grumble a little bit here and there, but we did understand the value of what we were trying to do. So again, a little bit of a leap of faith. We didn't lose anybody, and we've simmered down as far as the time constraints on it. We have seen the benefits to both the process of the pre-approval and the reviewing. And even though there's some tough conversations there, we're seeing results from it. So it's hard to argue once you start seeing the results. Buy-in creates buy-in. So
Yeah, proactive rather than reactive.
I would say probably the most grumble came from our fire expert. He was already doing it, so he had the least to grumble about.
I think that's time. I would be happy to connect with you all afterwards and throughout the rest of the convention here. Thank you all for being here and listening to us, and we'll wrap it there. Thanks.
Thank you all.